products.
Question number 7, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister, does he stand by the export pamphlet released last week which mentioned competitive advantage?
I beg your pardon. Is this a supplementary question to question number 6, or is it the primary question number 7?
Mr Speaker,
Order.
To the Minister, I apologise to the House. To the
Question
Minister,
number 7, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
To the Minister of Economic Development, does he stand by all his recent statements?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, first can I say to the member, welcome back. Mr Speaker.
Order. That is not acceptable. The member should not refer, the Minister should not refer to the absence of any member from the House, and under the particular circumstances it was doubly unacceptable. The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, yes, I do stand by all of my recent statements, particularly my statement in the House last week that we have always said if he had a shave, that meant the challenge was on.
The Honourable Trevor Mallard, point of order. Order.
Mr Speaker, you've already tossed someone out for repeat offences in the House today. That minister was warned by you last week. He was warned partway through that first response. Mr Speaker, I invite you to consider whether this minister is upholding the standards that you require of others in the House.
Order. The point of order is a totally reasonable point of order, in that the primary question asked was simply, does the Minister of Economic Development stand by all his recent statements? There is no political provocation in that question whatsoever, and therefore I ask the Minister to stand and withdraw his facetious comment at the end and apologise to the House for having made it. The Honourable Stephen Joyce. Order. I have required the Minister to stand, withdraw and apologise, and that will happen before I hear any other points of order. The Honourable Stephen Joyce. It's the last comment I want withdrawn and apologised for because it was totally unnecessary and facetious.
I withdraw and apologise, Mr Speaker.
Order. Before I hear the member, I hope the Minister was actually genuine in withdrawing and apologising. Because order. The alternative will be, if this carries on further, the Minister will be leaving the House just as the other member did. Because questions that are straight questions must be dealt with integrity. If there's a political loading in a question or statements that have political connotations, then ministers are perfectly at liberty to focus in on those and respond to them. But this primary question had none of that, and that's why I'm taking the matter seriously. A supplementary question, point of order, the Honourable Jerry Bromley.
Mr Speaker, I appreciate that you've made strong rulings this afternoon and wanting to take a firm line on a certain type of response, and indeed we've seen a certain type of question. However, sir, I would point out that the question does ask, does he stand by all his recent statements? I don't think it's unreasonable then for him to refer to one of his more controversial recent statements, which he could reasonably expect the opposition to be upset about.
I hear what the member has said, and we won't take this any further right now. And there's some merit in the point of order the Minister, the Leader of the House, has raised. It is one of the risks around asking such a question, does a minister stand by all their recent statements? But today I don't resile from the action I've taken, because there's too much, in recent times, just been too much needling going on when the question doesn't provoke it. But I do accept the point that the Leader of the House has made, that where such a question is asked, there are risks. But I want to leave it at that today. The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Order, Mr Speaker, and I understand you want to leave it at that, sir, but I think it would be unfortunate if it was left that way. Sir, the Minister is responsible for ministerial statements. He has no responsibility for whether my colleague shaves or not.
And we're going to leave it at here, and we're not going to take it any further. But of course, the question didn't actually ask about his ministerial statements. Although I do accept the point the member is making that the minister should only be responsible for statements he makes as a minister. And but I think the exchange has been an interesting one, because loose questions are always a little more dangerous. It's very difficult for the Speaker where questions are, does a minister stand by all their statements? It's always a difficult question to deal with. But I want to avoid where there is no political provocation in a question. I want ministers to resist the temptation to make political comments in their answers, because I'm confident they'll get the opportunity if they hold their breath and wait for the appropriate supplementary. The Honourable David Cunliffe, supplementary question.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker. Does the Minister stand by the export document that he released last week, which only mentioned competitive advantage and science once only each, yet cited brand 21 times and story 25 times?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
How many times was that in it?
Mr Speaker, yes, of course I do. If the member would like to take the two documents, the one released today and the one released last week, together and perhaps add up all the words and divide them by the numbers that it says science, I think you'll come to a different answer.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, does he stand by his use of the phrase voodoo economics when it was originally used by George Bush Sr. to describe exchange rate policies to which the Minister now himself describes as orthodox?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, I'm not sure that the member is correct, but I would describe the term voodoo economics as describing something which cannot possibly occur, or perhaps selling something which other people might describe, for example, as a snake oil solution, and I do stand by my comment in that regard.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, does the Minister stand by the innovation document issued this morning that does not even aspire to lift government R&D investment to 1/3 of the level of that of Finland? And can he assure the House that if the government joins its proposed small countries group with Finland, he will not send Mr Brownlee as a goodwill ambassador?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
There you go. Unbelievable.
Mr Speaker, this must be the time that you were referring to. Mr Speaker, can I say to the member that I'm confident that the target in the paper this morning is a correct target. Can I also say that I note that the two co-leaders of the Labour Party, Mr Shearer and Mr Cunliffe, have released a document today saying that they would ask us to support Finland more. Can I say that we will be working with all small countries?
Point of order, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, generous as it may be of the Minister to advertise the opposition statements, he has no responsibility.
Member will resume his seat. Order. I'm on my feet. Lucky I can't see the Minister in the back row there. But I said ministers only need to hold their breath, and a question will come where they can have a lot of licence, and that question gave the Minister a lot of licence. Clearly, I could have ruled it out, but I didn't, because it gives the Minister the chance to respond. Question number 8. Is this a supplementary question? The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, why, if the Minister stands by his innovation pamphlet, did he simply re-announce initiatives already underway, or in the case of 7 of the 49 initiatives, matters already completed? Why did he rely on Business New Zealand to post a draft on its website before the document was actually launched? And why did he rush out invitations to its launch as late as Friday in a desperate attempt to cover up for the failure of last week's export brochure?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, I appreciate the member's obviously got not much to do since he's come back from holiday, but the point I would make is that actually the comments made by the member were reasonably unnecessary, but the point I would make is that this is a progress report.
That's right.
So it outlines a number of initiatives that are new, a number of initiatives that are ongoing, and yes, a few initiatives that are finished, to lay out for the business sector, who I must say were very supportive of the report this morning, of what's actually going. More than a dozen new items, Mr Speaker, and some that have recently started, including the investment in science and engineering, the investment in increasing the PBRF, some from as recently as November of last year. Mr Speaker, I think the member's pointing out that the government has a very busy and very full science and innovation agenda.
Question number 8, Dr Jackie Blue.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health.